audit starts off with a gross accusation against me. That's when he says that I actually say that we should ban all testing that results in suffering. This is a gross miscalculation of the words that I actually say. When, in fact, I'm talking about, or the exact words, you can go look at them, specifically talk about how we should work towards a place where we remove suffering from the testing that we do in the status quo. It's a nuanced argument that I'm making that analyzes the pros and cons of animal testing, recognizes that some of them are bad and should be regulated, and some of them are good and actually have benefits not just for humans but for animals, which my my opponent completely fails to recognize, and in doing so should lose the debate. So one of the main problems with my opponent's rebuttal is that he seems to not understand the difference between ban and regulate and how you actually make arguments for them. So he says that he made 4 points for why we should ban animal testing, but in fact he makes 4 points for why animal testing is harmful to animals and is probably bad. Those are all reasons to regulate, though. Not a single one of them is determinate on banning animal testing, but rather is more supportive and would be more greatly benefited by regulating and allowing the good parts of, or like the beneficial parts of animal testing to continue. So he says that like the main reason to ban it is because it's ineffective for human testing. And even if we give him the ground that it's bad for all human testing, which I'm not going to, which isn't true, it does still benefit humans on multiple levels. But even if it's negative for all humans, I did quite a bit of work in my own speech to prove to you why it's positive for some animals, though. Like why we talk about how when we test pesticides against animals first, then we see the toxic level, or how much is toxic for an animal, how much is toxic for various creatures, and that stops us from killing animals unwantedly. So we think that payoff for animals is hugely positive, especially when you consider the fact that chemotherapy drugs that are then used on dogs would also be tested on dogs. And those kinds of things are very specifically net positive for animals, and my opponent completely disregards those in his speech, while they are still in the testing that would be happening in the United States and therefore would be banned. So I think that is the main reason why my opponent should lose, for not even considering any of those possibilities. But then he's talking, when he moves on to his rebuttal about the EU, and he says that the humans want this to happen primarily. Well, the EU ban is focused solely on cosmetics. They banned cosmetic testing. They didn't ban medical testing. They didn't ban pesticide testing. They didn't ban any of that. So, in a sense, in relationship to the resolution proposed, that would still be a regulation. Banning cosmetic testing is a regulation compared to banning all animal testing. So even if we do want to follow the EU's method and just follow after them because they're doing something that sounds cool, that's still a regulation and still a reason to vote for the opposition, not for the proposition. Okay, so moving on to my own matter, though. So he says that we're not going to be testing humans in this because we have computers to test things on. Well, we have computers to test things on now, and we still have human testing. We still pay college students and people who see flyers in medical buildings and on college campuses to test medicines, to test drugs, to test various things. This happens in everyday reality. So this doesn't go away. And in fact, most products go through a human testing stage after they make sure that it's not toxic, to make sure it does what they want it to do on humans. So this doesn't go away, and that point still stands because it happens in the status quo, and it certainly won't happen once we lose the majority of testing subjects that we have. So he then finally says that if we do ban it now, we can redefine it after. And this is just silly, because we don't redefine things that don't exist anymore. If we ban animal testing in its entirety, we're not going to then redefine it and regulate it so that we can bring it back. In fact, if we ban it, it will never happen. It will go away entirely, and we will be left without the benefits to humans and animals.